details. I heard that. This meeting is being conducted in council chambers and is being live streamed on Facebook Live. The meeting is called to order. I note that all members of council are present and we have quorum. You have before you the proposed agenda from the Director of Finance. Item 4, Valley Waste Capital Plan, is removed from this agenda and sent to the April 25th council meeting. A motion to accept the proposed agenda, please. Councillor Huntley, thank you, and a seconder. Councillor York, thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you. Director, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening or good afternoon to all of you. And nice to see my fellow directors out there going to help me along through this whole program. We're here today to present to you the initial draft of the Town of Kentville Capital Investment Plan for the year 22-23, and that will be approved in practice, and then in principle we'll be approving the next 4 years. That is a requirement of the federal government and the provincial government. We're going to have an agenda that I've written up for this particular presentation is that I'm going to give you a little bit of general information before we get into the departmental budgets. And then we're going to look at a couple of slides on the debt service ratio and the per capita debt. And then we'll be looking to you for some discussion and some direction. So firstly, the Capital Investment Plan is a planning tool. It's a multi-year financial plan. In our case, it's 5 years for the construction and acquisition of capital infrastructure and the gathering of equipment. The blueprint provides for the planning of future financial resources required to finance the projects, identify the future financial resources required from the operating fund to operate and maintain the assets when complete. It's a map also to implement numerous long-range plans that the town has, the ICSP, the sustainability plan, the strategic plans that we have. We have master plans, climate change action plan, accessibility plans, active transportation plans, and asset management plans. So there's a lot of plans that we have that are built into this particular, or any of our particular capital acquisition plans. So we have to set priorities. We know that financial resources are limited and that our needs always exceed our financial resources. The departments themselves identify the capital needs from the various plans that I just mentioned, and also from community input, council requests, from service improvement objectives, growth and development needs, etc. One of the predictable sources of external funding comes from the Canada Community Building Fund, which is formerly known as the gas tax program. The CCBF was made a permanent program in 2015, and it's to be indexed annually, and it provides flexibility to the government in addressing local infrastructure priorities. It is administered through a bilateral agreement with the province of Nova Scotia, and it delivers $55.8 million each year to 50 municipalities across Nova Scotia. The funds are distributed in Nova Scotia as follows. 25% is based on the dwelling units, 25% is based on per capita basis, and 50% is based on a province-wide 5-year rolling average of municipal spending. The 5-year capital investment plan we present today is a requirement of the federal Canada Community Building Fund in order to keep those monies flowing into the town of Kentville. The town received $460,422 in 21-22, along with a one-time top-up of $441,350. We expect that we will receive the same as last year, $460,422. Other external sources of capital financing may be available from both the federal and provincial governments, which can release grants for certain projects. Release of these funding programs may or may not coincide with our capital plan at times, but with the release of these funds, certain capital programs are pushed forward to capture the external funding. The town's internal option for funding comes from the town's capital reserve funds, which the town actively contributes to each year, mainly through its operating budget. To balance the wish list each year, the balancing funding comes from long-term borrowing. So some of the things we look at, that the directors look at, are health and safety requirements, capital for new services related to making a healthy community, for example, active transportation development, capital for traffic infrastructure, safe roads and streets, safe sidewalks, safe vehicles and equipment for the personnel to use, capital related to new legislation, for example, the accessibility requirements, Capital for safe buildings upgrades this year will be to the VIC and to 66 Webster Street, for example. Fiscal and budget impacts involve available cost sharing that I spoke of before from upper levels of government related to the Canada Community Building Fund and the Green Infrastructure Funds and the Nova Scotia Recreation Facility Development Grants. And those are just examples of some of the outside funding we receive. Service enhancements include capital for enhanced services, adding infrastructure such as the dog park, or extending and improving trails, for example. Asset replacement is a big part of our capital acquisition plan, capital for repaving roads, renewing sidewalks, storm sewer, replacing equipment and vehicles, for example. This year, we are looking at renewing the McDonald Avenue subdivision. All the infrastructure will be entirely renewed in that particular area. And we're looking at purchasing a street sweeper, new police vehicles, and new recreation vehicles. And we also look at growth and development, capital for trail enhancement. This could be this year related to Miners Landing Trail and the West Main Street Pathway, as well as the Aldershot Trail, and capital for adding wayfinding signage, adding beautification, and addition of public washrooms. And these are the things that you'll find in this particular capital acquisition plan. So having said that, we'll move into the departmental projects overview. And firstly, we're going to look at the Canada Community Building Fund, which is formerly known as the Gas Tax Fund. And you may hear me talk about gas tax. I'm using those words interchangeably, but it is now known as the Canada Community Building Fund. We're looking at this program this year costing $976,800. It's an increase of about $526,800 over last year. The program that is being offered this year is the McDonald Avenue subdivision complete paving and the storm sewer renewal in that particular section. We're looking at the subdivision paving costing $693,500, and the McDonald Avenue subdivision storm sewer, we're looking at $283,300. The funding sources will come from gas tax, the residual from 21-22, $596,900, and gas tax current year, $379,900, and that is the balancing factor.
Yeah, go ahead, so that way it'll be,
The McDonald Avenue subdivision, is that where there were some issues this past year? I think it was in the winter time,
Yes.
where there had to be some work done with respect to, I don't know that it was actually sewer, but I think there were water main breaks or something, and I'm just wondering, like, kind of what the cost of that was. Thank you.
All of the above, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If it's not sewer, it's water
Okay.
and storm. So
Okay.
this figure, of course, doesn't include separate budgets for the Water Commission and the sanitary sewer service, which will be presented to Water Commission on Wednesday this week and probably next CAC or sooner for the sanitary sewer. So the whole project's roughly $1.5 million to do it complete. So that 976 would be lacking the water and sewer portions, but the street as a whole needs to be rebuilt, much like Burke subdivision was last year.
Right.
So all major services, because, yeah, we had water. We've had 2 water breaks in the last 2 years. Probably every 2 or 3 months, the street's being dug up for sewer laterals on our side of the property line. So it's, and now the road is totally shot. It's
Right.
curb is gone, the asphalt is all broken up.
Okay.
It's been on our priority list for a number of years,
Okay.
and sort of became this year's priority.
Awesome, that's great.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank
thanks.
you, Worship.
Yeah, the streets that are included are McDonald Avenue, Braeside Drive, and Henry Street. So, yeah.
Councillor Gerard, go ahead.
My question was, what streets did
All right. In addition to that, Director Bell, is there any plan to look at Forest Hill, since you're going to be doing that, and whether that's a street or a laneway or what?
It is just a laneway, there's no question. Actually, CAO Troke and I had a discussion today, what some options may be. There's still a dozen homes or so up there. With it's a 2-way laneway, but I think closing off one end or the other would be negative, negative in the sense, we don't allow roads to be longer than 500 feet and dead-ended, so we'd be kind of going against our own policy for closing off one end or the other. So I think keeping it a throughfare is still the right decision for emergency service, first responders and things of that nature. We could investigate, and we can do a bit of a report on whether it should be one way or not. I'm not sure that will actually slow traffic down, because if they know it's one way, they might drive all the faster. I was up there just on the Friday night, I guess. I drove through, and it's certainly narrow, but the street itself's in pretty good condition. We've upgraded it a number of times, and the asphalt's in pretty good shape. But it's on that end of, as you know, of McDonald Avenue. And that's as far as the project will go this year, to the water tie-in that was recently repaired, or upgraded, we'll say, about 5 years ago on that intersection of Forest Hill with McDonald Avenue. So that's the limits of this planned project under the gas tax. But
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
All right.
Back to you, Director.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next section, which is the Green Infrastructure Program, which is the rollout of the Active Transportation Plan. The projects are budgeted, you can see in front of you. We're looking at this project being very robust this year. We're looking at about $1.3 million in overall infrastructure this year. We're looking at West Main Street Pathway, which is carried forward from last year, $40,000. Aldershot Rail Trail rehabilitation was also carried forward from last year. We're looking at that at $150,000. Signs, line painting in 13 locations is moved forward as well, $55,100. New to this budget is the Harvest Moon Trail Connector at $1 million. Miners Marsh Trail, $35,000. For a total of about $1.3 million. The funding comes from Green Infrastructure, federal and provincial governments, $938,700, and our own borrowing, $341,400. The projects break down as follows. The West Main Street Pathway would include new concrete, a multi-use pathway 3 meters wide, line painting, bollards, and signage, and you can find this on page 60 of the Active Transportation Plan. Aldershot Rail Trail rehabilitation includes the spreading of crusher dust. This is a heavily traveled trail, and you can find this information on page 75 of the Active Transportation Plan. Signs and line painting at 13 locations to denote bike routes throughout the town until the building of bike lanes is possible. The signs were purchased in March of 2022 but have not been installed. Several pages of the Active Transportation include this information, pages 67 to 83. The Harvest Moon Trail Connector includes new concrete, a multi-use pathway, line painting, crossing signals, and signage, and you can find that on page 61 to page 63 of the Active Transportation Plan. And Miners Marsh Trail includes new concrete, line painting, signage for a multi-use pathway for the trailhead at the entrance of Klondike, and widening both the boardwalk and the paved section just off the Klondike entrance. And you can find that located on page 68 of the Active Transportation Plan. The federal government pays 40% of this particular program, and that would equal, in this case, $512,000, and the province pays 33.3%, and that equates to $426,700. That's what makes up the $938,700. The town of Kentville is responsible for 26.67% of the program, and we're looking at $341,400. And as I mentioned earlier, we are looking to borrow that money. That is the end of that particular section.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, I don't have my AT plan in front of me, but the West Main Street Pathway, can I get a description of that? Like, where, is it on the road? Is it the, what's there now? Does it go into the non-paved portion? Or?
So the West Main Street project is the crossing that comes off of the Harvest Moon Trail, down the sidewalk, and then connects to the rest of the Harvest Moon Trail. So the project is putting in a multi-use pathway where the sidewalk is, so it would be for both pedestrians and cyclists or mobility users, leading to the crosswalk and then onto the Harvest Moon Trail.
Okay.
So when you see multi-use pathway in the plan, that's what it means, is that this is a place for everybody to use,
Right.
not except for cars.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it does.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. So the portions of the funding, the green infrastructure federally and provincially, those amounts are germane to all of those items, or just specific, or can only be used for the Harvest Moon Trail connector?
It's for the entire program.
For the whole program? Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. Okay, we'll move on to the next section, which is administration. This section remains the same amount, dollar-wise, $20,000 as it was last year for what we call IT projects. We try to add to some of our technology and our software applications each year. This year, we're looking at adding a human resource software, HRIS My Way, which is Human Resource Information Systems, which allows HR personnel to enter information on the system and have information that is available for analysis and reporting purposes, but also employees can access their information, their government ID numbers, and that type of thing. It's a self-service portal, so employees can use the self-service portal to keep their records up to date. So we feel it's time to have something like that in our system. So we're looking at that for our project in IT and administration this year. Protective Services Policing is next. We're looking at this budget increasing $87,800 from last year to $206,000. The police are asking for 2 marked vehicles, $132,000. TMR radios for equipment at $49,000. Building front office upgrades for accessibility purposes, $25,000 for a total of $206,000. We're looking at operations paying for $66,000, which is 1 vehicle. Reserve paying for another $66,000, which is the 2nd vehicle, and borrowing for the other projects, $74,000. So KPS replaces 1 vehicle each year on a 3-year rotation. Typically, their cars drive 150,000 kilometers over those 3 years, and of course, the cost of maintenance is increasing as they are driven longer and longer. So we are carrying forward from last year 1 vehicle. Due to supply chain issues, the KPS could not obtain a 21-22 vehicle in that year. We actually did just get that vehicle last week. So we are budgeting $66,000, and that money will come from reserve to pay for that vehicle from last year. They're also asking for its 22-23 vehicle, which is another $66,000. So we're hoping that we can obtain a vehicle this year. We're not 100% sure that we can, but if God is looking at us, we'll get our 2nd vehicle before the end of the fiscal year. So we're looking at $55,000 for each car and $11,000 to outfit each one of those cars. That particular financing for the 2nd vehicle will come from the town's operations, or the Town of Kentville Operating Fund. Regarding the TMR radios, KPS, Kentville Police Service, uses portable radios to communicate with dispatch and other officers. We're looking at the current system being provided free of charge from the RCMP, and it's 12 to 15 years old. It is not produced anymore, nor is it serviced by Motorola anymore, so there are no options for replacement or repair. So we're looking at the risk of not implementing or not getting new TMR radios. Could be a total or partial failure of the system related to outdated hardware, which could prohibit communication in a crisis or over a period of time. So that is why they are looking out for new TMR radios. The building section aims to address accessibility issues at the Kentville Police Building, as well as some repairs which are needed to prevent further damage to the building. Inside the building, several doors need to be widened, upgrades are needed in the bathroom, and adjustments must be made to the front counter. This will accommodate members of the public who are in wheelchairs. So we're looking at that, office upgrades costing about $25,000.
Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. Just to the chief, I know when I was on the commission, there was always an issue is there any light at the end of the tunnel in finding new vehicles, or is it still an option to piggyback off of larger
Right now,
institutions?
no, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. So the one from last year just came in last week. We haven't really asked for anything yet because we haven't got approval for the funding, obviously. But no, there's no reason to believe it's going to happen in a couple of months. It'll probably be months to get another vehicle in. Because we're asking for a single vehicle as opposed to Halifax, who orders 50 or 60 at a time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a struggle to get them for sure. And the maintenance costs are astronomical for keeping them on the road.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving now into the transportation section of the capital plan. Firstly, we look at what we call yearly projects. We're looking at these projects decreasing slightly from last year. We're looking at $418,000 as the ask. This year for equipment, the engineer is asking for a new street sweeper, $350,000. Downtown improvements related to Belcher Street traffic lights, $10,000. And the Public Works building and storage, some repairs and maintenance in that particular building at costing $58,000. So the funding will come from reserves for $168,000 and borrowing $250,000. So the current street sweeper is 13 years old. It was purchased in 2009, and over the past couple of years, it's cost significant dollars to keep the vehicle up and running. The equipment is one of the most used pieces of heavy machinery in the Public Works fleet. In addition to sweeping our own streets and parking lots, it is also used by Kentville Water Commission to excavate and the sewer system to vacuum and maintain catch basins. It's a very versatile piece of equipment, and in addition to using it ourselves, we often rent it out to other businesses and governments. Belcher Street traffic lights will be upgraded this year. Last year, 2 sets at Belcher were upgraded. These traffic lights are physically worn out, and this completes the upgrade of lights at the Belcher Street, Cornwall Street intersection. Public Works building needs work this year. The south windows are 30 years old and wood frame, and they are rotting, so we're looking at $20,000 to replace those. The north wall has suffered water damage, has rusted and detached from the bottom of the building. They will pour a concrete curb base to reattach the building on that north wall. We're looking at $15,000 for that particular project. Public Works would like to purchase 2 sea cans or shipping containers for storage. They can store equipment and or the snow blowers in there, so they're looking at those costing about $16,000. And also the propane hot water heater needs to be replaced to an on-demand hot water heater. The current one is leaking, so we're looking at a $7,000 replacement there. That is the yearly projects in transportation. Any questions?
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. Just wondering about the street sweeper. Is that going to be in addition to maintaining the one that we have, or is it a replacement? And if it's a replacement, then are we going to sell the other one, or?
Certainly try to, yeah, we wouldn't run 2. It would become a surplus and try to get some value from it. I don't expect a whole lot.
Yeah.
We keep it going with our mechanic on site, but
Parts, maybe.
parts are almost impossible. The truck itself has a GMC badge, but it's a Isuzu truck that they don't make anymore.
Right.
Can't get parts, and there's two engines, essentially, one for the truck and one for the sweeper, and parts are becoming the issue just because it's 13 years old and can have lots of foreign parts, but.
And the
ahead.
Belcher Street lights, are those the ones at the bottom of the hill, or which lights are those?
Those are the ones that hang in the intersection, so there's 4 there that they relocated, 3 of, I suppose, when they realigned the intersection for the new bridge. When they were moving them, relocating them 2 years ago, they were even leery to put them back up, fearing for just the way they were worn out. So we changed the worst 2 immediately, and then these next 2, they're the ones that are hanging sort of right over the middle of the intersection that sort of swing and sway in the wind, and it's
Right
just
at the bottom of the
just,
hill, yeah.
right at the bottom, right
Okay,
above
great.
the middle.
Thank you.
Okay, then we'll move on to transportation, the street segment. We're looking at $110,000 this year is the ask. We're looking at Burke Subdivision top lift paving, $90,000, and Carmen and Alicia asphalt curbing for $20,000. We're looking at the funding coming from long-term borrowing at $110,000. The Burke Subdivision will get its top lift. This is its final paving run through, and this will complete the infrastructure upgrades in this particular subdivision. The asphalt curb replacement is needed at Carmen and Alicia. The curbing in this area is 30-plus years old, and over time, there are stretches of curbing on both streets that are missing, so those particular missing sections are going to be reinstated.
Councillor Maxwell?
Thank you. Again, I'm wondering, now Carmen and Alicia newer section of town where we're having trouble with asphalt curbing. And I have no problem fixing the curbing up there at all. However, we have Apple Tree Lane, which is a much older area, and Hillcrest subdivision, also with asphalt curbs that are much older subdivisions. And I'm wondering what we're going to do for those and when.
Very good. Yeah, all of those streets have asphalt curb and are decades old. Everything new that we do typically in a new build is concrete for sure. It does last longer, but at about a 3-to-1 expense. Sections of, for whatever reason, Alicia and Carmen, a lot of it probably is snowplow related, but it's just been peeled up, so there's nothing left at all. But I do know where you're talking about the councillor, yeah, on Apple Tree, and where else did you mention?
Hillcrest.
Hillcrest as well, yeah.
Yeah, they have, I walk up that area, they have like next to no
Yep.
curbing left up there.
We'll get a unit price for the curb and pick the worst spots. We itemize those streets, but we'll see how far the money goes, and we'll do the worst of them.
Great, thank
Whichever
you.
ones look the worst. Thanks.
Okay, we'll move on then. Under transportation, we have the precast bridge, $115,000. And this relates to the wooden trail bridge to Meadowview that burned last year. This has been moved into transportation because basically it's just the removal and the reinstatement of this precast bridge. The bridge was removed, as I said, last year, and the precast bridge was ordered. Some prep work was done last year and completed, but due to winter closing in, the work had to stop. So the new precast bridge will be installed in 22-23. We're looking at insurance covering all but $25,000 of the reinstatement, and the sum will come from general capital reserves. Moving on to the next section under transportation, we're looking at flood mitigation, slight increase from last year, $55,000. We're looking at Palmer subdivision for $40,000, Condon Avenue retaining wall for $15,000, and we're looking at long-term borrowing paying for this particular program. Palmer subdivision relates to the stormwater outlet off McDonald Park Road that needs to be replaced and extended. The current infrastructure is too short and has rotted. Condon Avenue needs an addition to the retaining wall for $15,000. It stems from the extreme flooding of 2019 that wiped out the infrastructure on the street, in fact, the entire street. The road was rebuilt in 2020, and a retaining wall was also built. However, this needs to be extended to prevent further damage to the reinstated infrastructure. So we're looking at $15,000 for that particular build.
Councillor York?
Thank you. For the Condon Avenue wall, was that extension always in the plan, or has there been further damage, and should we be concerned about further future damage?
I wouldn't say it was further damage as much, it needs to go farther upstream. The wall that was there, I guess, it is damaged, I suppose. It's undermined and eroded a bit, so we need to lower some of that wall, not lower it, but add more courses. This is a unit block wall, much like the new site across from the fire hall where they put that big block retaining wall in. That's sort of the go-to product now. It's probably the best bang for the buck to get a big wall in and without pouring concrete. So they put in roughly 30 feet 2 years ago, and we're going to go another 20 feet up the hill and make it a little deeper as it steps up the sort of the stream. So not necessarily more major damage, just a
Continued.
little extra, yeah, to get it
And
to complete.
Is there any mitigation that we can do, pardon the pun, but further upstream to
Upstream.
prevent the erosion in these lower streets?
I think the biggest mitigation will come if and when we build the Hilts Road. Honestly,
Okay.
that's where a lot of the runoff starts and
Okay.
has sort of found its own new pathways since that road's gone in. That's one of the suggestions is if and when we do that work to really do. Just immediately upstream, it's not the issue. It starts much farther
Okay.
back up south of that property.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we'll move on to transportation sidewalks. We're looking at this program being beefed up, and that's why you see a cow there. I couldn't find a steer, so I found a cow. I apologize profusely. But anyway, it's beefed up at the request of the engineer to $125,000. So we're looking at sidewalks being carried forward from last year. This is from Main Street and Park Street. Both more sections of these sidewalks have failed and need replacement, so we need this extra $25,000 over last year. So anyway, we're just looking at trying to get this project, these two particular sections of sidewalk complete this year.
Councillor Maxwell.
I'm just wondering, which sections of Main Street and Park Street are we looking at repairing or replacing?
They're somewhat sporadic. There's as Director Kroll mentioned, there's a few that we wanted to do last year that were sort of had really failed in front of the Ultramar, and a little bit farther, I guess, in front of Headliners. There were several sections, and they were short sections, but they were in really bad condition. But there was such a small amount of work. We didn't have any other sidewalk projects really last year, so it was hard to get interest on the job the size that it was. So we're going to put it out along with probably along with the AT plan, just to get better interest and hopefully better economies of scale when we tender that work. So it's that area. There's some sections here. We don't want to do too much of the Main Street area because a lot of that's covered under years 2 and 3 of the AT plan.
Right.
That's sort of the downtown center loop on both sides of the street through the business district. But even out here in front of Town Hall and going east towards East Main Street, there's a lot of panels there that are in bad condition. So it's not a long stretch anywhere. It's mostly sporadic stuff to fix up. Like to see if we have enough money also, if we can, to do the section on Prospect between where it stopped at Church 2 years ago to Selfridge, because that asphalt
Yes.
sidewalk is basically gone. So it'll be a mixture, mostly concrete, but that one I think we'll keep with asphalt just because of the grades and a little more affordable
Okay,
at this point in time.
thank you very
Is
much.
that all?
Yep.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. I thought Councillor Maxwell was going to mention one of these streets, but she didn't. And thanks for mentioning Prospect, so that's helpful because I had that written down. Cornwallis, I know it's in quite a deplorable state, obviously, and has there been any thought on when that might be done, or?
Yeah, I
it
believe
really
it's certainly
is.
in the 5-year plan. You're talking mostly from the lights up to Exhibition, or I guess there and beyond.
Correct, yeah,
Yeah,
beyond. yeah.
Beyond too, because you're up quite a bit farther before you get to the concrete sidewalk, isn't it? Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
mostly that asphalt section.
Yes.
The issue there is under one side, I think certainly the east side is where the sanitary sewer is located.
Yes,
So, again, we like to do the infrastructure before we do the sidewalks.
Of
Because
course.
that sewer line is reaching its end of life as well. So
Okay.
I suspect when we replace that, we would put concrete sidewalk as sort of a main artery like Cornwallis, once the sewer is replaced in future years.
okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Helpful.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. On that Cornwallis Street section, I noticed it's under the next year's budget, 23 budget. Are we looking at leaving it, making sure that it's done there, or, is this going to be pushed off more and more and more?
Don't want to push it off. Certainly, if we'll make sure that if it's an area that needs pipe work replaced first, we would do that either. I would suspect the same time, the same construction season, do the sewer pipe and then replace the sidewalk
Right,
in the same season.
so
to
we're
get it
aiming
done.
for 23.
23,
Okay.
3, 4, yes.
Great, thank you.
Okay, we're looking at the final program in the transportation section being the study, which is the asset management plan, storm sewer. And this is a carry forward project. Most of this work, as council is aware, was carried out in 21-22 with a report to you on March the 28th, 22 from the consultant. However, we haven't received the final written report at this time, and we need that report before we can submit our claim. The funding will be coming from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities for $24,500, and our reserve fund will pick up the difference of $3,000. So looking at transportation in the summary, we're looking at last year's figure, $920,000. This year, we're looking at a slight decrease of $69,500 to $850,500. And you can see the projects that are listed there, and the funding will come from contributions, reserve funds, and from borrowing, $540,000. So, moving on to the next segment, we're looking at planning and economic development being the next section. We're looking at an increase here of around $230,500 from last year's figure of $54,500 to $283,000. The first project is Municipal Floodline Mapping Project for $180,000. We're looking at downtown betterments, various lighting and bike racks for $13,000. Center Square Beautification, Phase 2, which is a carried forward project at $12,000. Public art displays for $15,000. Gateway signs, green spaces, $15,000. And buildings, the Visitor Information Center and 66 Station Lane, costing $50,000. The funding will come from the province of Nova Scotia, municipal affairs, $180,000, and our reserve funds for $105,000. So the floodline mapping project we received this notice on March the 24th, 2022. It's money towards the eligible costs of engaging consultants to carry out work following guidance and technical specifications in the municipal floodline mapping document. The town will manage the project with advice from a project committee established by the town of at least 5 people with 2 provincial staff. The project is up to $180,000, and we did receive the $180,000 already sitting in our reserve funds in order to pay for whatever part of this program is carried out. Any residual funds have to be paid back to the province of Nova Scotia. The project is going to be led by our planning director, Bev Gentleman, and supported by Kirsten Duncan. Downtown betterments include seasonal lighting program, which continues every year, and we're looking at that costing $8,000. And this year, we're looking at bike racks for downtown, $5,000. The Center Square Beautification Phase 2 is carried forward from last year for $12,000, and it'll consist of banners and seating, sort of bistro-type two-toppers, and lighting. So that will be a continuation of a project that was started a number of years ago. Beautification relates to public art displays for $15,000, and this money will support the installation of public art in Kentville with a focus on the downtown. Part of this particular funding will cover, is earmarked for sponsoring a specific mural overlooking the public garden featuring Brian Gibson. Public art was recommended in both the active transportation plan and the accessibility plan. Public art checks all the boxes, increased community connection and pride, creates a welcoming and inclusive community. Beautification is an immediate and year-round benefit, increases a sense of vibrancy in the business district, and public art can be a destination and a place-making best practice. The Gateway Green Spaces signage relates to completing the 2 gateway signs on Nichols Avenue and Park Street West. They need design and landscape work. They look incomplete at this time, and once finished, we'll promote our branding, which is a breath of fresh air, as well as display a tone of welcome to those visiting the town. Under buildings, the Visitor Information Center is looking for $30,000 to fix an existing sewer issue, reside the building to match other facilities, which will avoid painting on often in order to keep the building looking new, insulate the building, and install a new heat pump. The accessibility door and ramp both need to be reassessed, and changes will make this facility more comfortable for all seasons, which can extend both the operations of the Visitor Information Center, but also the facility can be used for groups looking for a location to meet. 66 Station Lane is looking for $20,000. This is the former Via Rail station, and this building needs to have its roof replaced. So we're looking at those being the projects for that particular section.
Councillor Zabian.
Thank you. just wondering, with the Via Rail Station, if enough money's been budgeted. I know I've been over a few times and we've been in correspondence with them. We've heard, most of us have heard from them that they've got leaks and it's not only the roof, but the windows as well. So I'm just questioning, with the cost of everything, what 20,000 is gonna give us exactly? Because I'm sure the roof's even more than, or a new roof is probably even more than 20,000, right? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. And yes, there's a number of issues with the building. Where we were going to start with is there's a leak on one particular side of the roof. What's happening though is you try to repair it, other shingles are splintering, so the roof's in bad shape. We've had some initial quotes that were too high. So what we're doing now is we're looking at what our options are to do that roof and completely deal with that. There's some painting was done last year in-house and we'll continue to do that. So basically throughout the summer months, Jerry, when he's got time, goes over and does some work. But the roof piece has to be done, and so we're just trying to now get the most economical way to do that. And it might even mean that we will go to somebody who will do the roof based on availability in order to get a better price.
Okay. But it would be the entire roof, not just a half?
Yeah, that's where we're trying to, because when we tried patching it, it was just causing more damage.
Exactly, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. I just had a question around the beautification piece around the public art, the 15,000. Is that for the actual piece of art, or that's the sponsorship?
I think it's more of a sponsorship. It's a variety of art displays, perhaps to be funded by the town. It's not just one piece, but there is a $5,800 earmark for a specific piece that will overlook the public garden.
Okay, that's the 5,800, okay. Okay. And that piece that will overlook the public garden, that's not something though that we as a town would own, correct?
I'm assuming that if we're paying for it, we will, but I'm not,
Okay.
I hadn't heard that we
Yes,
weren't.
we will? Okay, great, thank you. Yep, perfect.
Okay, we're going to move into the recreation segment of the budget now. And the first segment for recreation is soccer. It's the same as last year. We're looking at $8,000 for the purchase of aluminum nets. And we know that aluminum nets are purchased because they're safer for children if they fall over. Recreation green spaces, we're looking at this program increasing $92,200. It was zero last year. We had nothing in this particular segment last year. Kentfield Trail Bridge Replacement, we're looking at $25,000. Miners Landing Trail, we're looking at a $30,000 ask. Miners Marsh Trail, $20,000 ask. And the Gorge for survey and trail upgrades, $17,200. The funding will come from operations, the Town of Kentville Operating Fund, park fees, $5,300, and from our own capital reserves, $86,900. The Kentfield Trail Bridge Replacement is the bridge behind the curling club. Presently, this bridge is inaccessible and needs work as it is part of our heavily used trail system. Miners Landing Trail will connect Miners Landing Complex to the Kentfield Trail system. This is part of the green space agreement with the developer. $5,300 did come from the developer, and the rest of the funding related to this particular trail will come from the capital reserve. Miners Marsh Trail is to grade and repair the trail. The winter flooding of 2022 washed out 3 major areas of the Miner Marsh Trail. Presently, the trail is currently inaccessible. The gorge survey and trail upgrades, part of the gorge may infringe on personal property and must be surveyed for a proper boundary. So we're looking at $7,200 for that. And then we're looking for trail upgrades and new builds in preparation for the Canada Cup Nationals, and if need be, to readjust the trail after the survey is completed. So we're looking at $10,000 for that ask.
Councillor Maxwell.
No, I got my answer to which trail bridge, and it's behind the curling club.
Okay.
Okay, we move on to recreation facilities arena. We're looking at the arena increasing $119,500 to $161,000 this year. We're looking at the drain, $10,000, rubber flooring for $10,000, canteen upgrades for $6,000, and a condenser, $135,000. The reserve fund will pay for $26,000 of this program, and borrowing will pay for $135,000. So the arena entrance drain to the Zamboni is lacking proper drainage, and it's causing a hazard as there is no drain at the entrance. This water freezes and can cause slip and falls. It's a safety issue not only for staff, but any public who venture through this store, so that needs to be redone this year. Rubber flooring is also on the venue for $10,000. Current rubber flooring is deteriorating with the skate blades running across it. Parts are becoming trip hazards due to the blades, but rubber flooring also protects skate edges, so we really do need to have the rubber flooring in place. Canteen upgrades relate to the canteen did not pass Department of Health examination. It needs new floors, new countertops, and a new freezer in order to operate the canteen in 22-23 and beyond. Presently, the canteen has a temporary permit in order to operate during the home show, but work needs to be completed as cited in order to operate in the fall and beyond. The condenser needs replacement. The current condenser is broken, which means the rink cannot open until it is replaced. The current condenser is 9 years old and has needed significant repairs in the last fiscal year in order to keep the rink open. It's possible there could be a wait time of 4 to 6 months for a new condenser to be acquired, which could affect the timing of the opening of the arena in fall 2022. So that's an important piece that needs to be looked at right away.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I usually ask one embarrassing question during the capital budget. What is a condenser?
Rachel can tell us.
Oh, okay. I think last year I asked what is Zamboni.
And I'm gonna do my best. There are people who know this much more than I, but it does, so if, this year we actually had to put about $6,000 towards repairing the condenser in order to get through the season because it was leaking ammonia. And ammonia is one of those things that helps kind of keep the ice cold. Thank you. And I thought I should just end there. But anyway, but that was just to get us through the season.
Okay.
And generally, those condensers last a lot longer than this one did. We have called the company and we're working on things, but yeah.
Okay.
It's a pretty important piece, both from the running of the arena, but also keeping the staff and the public safe.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll move on then to recreation, the facilities for parks and playgrounds. We're looking at this increasing $132,000 over last year to $540,000. We're looking at Memorial Park grandstand, $350,000, Memorial Park ball field irrigation, $20,000, Memorial Park fencing, $15,000, the dog park, $125,000, Oakdean Park irrigation, $20,000, and the hub building, $10,000. The funding for this program will come from the reserve funds, $127,500, and long-term borrowing, $412,500. So the grandstands need to be replaced, and they need to be accessible, which they aren't now. The current stands are unsafe and they're beginning to rot, so we're looking at getting those replaced into something and having some accessible seating as well for people who have special needs. Memorial Park irrigation is the installment of irrigation system at the softball field, and that's $20,000. Memorial Park fencing, $15,000. Every year we replace a section of fencing. Fencing is damaged every year, so we keep up with that program. The dog park is a continuation of the program we started last year. This year it includes fencing, water installation and connection, trees and benches. It was stalled, as you may be aware, last year due to the Department of Agriculture. We have a permit to continue work this year, but it must be completed by the end of September 2022. Kentville will build the dog park, and the Village of New Minas has agreed to be the ongoing maintenance partner in the park. The Oakdean Park irrigation is the water connection, which is the final connectivity that is needed in that park to remove the current manual irrigation process. So we're looking at that costing $20,000. And the hub building, we're looking to winterize the washroom for $10,000. We offer multiple winter programs and need a winterized washroom for public use. So those are the programs under Parks and Playgrounds.
Counselor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. Rachel, over the last couple of years, I've had conversations with Kevin about Memorial Park and the lighting, and more specifically, the poles that the lights are on that he told me were probably installed in the 60s. Is there any way of doing an assessment, and is there any near future look at replacing those?
We can certainly look into that for sure, and it is on our radar. The poles themselves, we need to work with NSP, Nova Scotia Power, on that. But yeah, we can take a look into getting a formal assessment done.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Director Bedingfield, with regards to the dog park, so last year we invested 55,000, and I thought there was going to be some cost sharing, and I was really surprised when I saw the $125,000 price tag for this year.
We did get $16,000 from the Village of New Minas, and that was actually used last year to do the work that was done last year but had to be reinstated because the Department of Agriculture asked us to put things back in place. So that money was spent to help offset those costs last year.
So at the end of the day, our dog park is going to cost us about $200,000?
Correct.
And did we, I guess, did we realize that when we went ahead with this?
So the cost last year didn't, it's adjusted this year because of cost increase, which I think we probably would have gone if we'd been able to move forward last year. We would have had to go over the budget. So it's a bit more of a realistic piece. But also this year we've also included installation of the water as well, so that the park has access to water. So that is in that cost as well. But everything from groundwork to fencing to turf movement, that's all, everything has gone up quite a bit.
Okay, thank you. Councillor York.
When we look at winterizing the hub washrooms, is there an opportunity to also look at making the washrooms more accessible from the building or the main building and the decking itself on the lower level, instead of having to go around the building?
Yeah, it's a good point. We had actually thought about that a lot when we took over that building, and just couldn't figure out a way to rig it.
Yeah, it's a bizarre scenario.
I know, and because the footprint was, the building was already there, we couldn't design it from the ground up. And so because of the slope, the grade, it's just really tricky. Like, we'd have to redo the whole deck and come out onto the field and things.
Okay.
But yeah, it is really not cool.
I didn't know how to say it either, but yeah, it's not cool. You have to go around the whole building.
Because if you have any type of mobility issues, then you have to come down and go around and things like that.
And it relies, especially in the winter, on the parking lot being maintained to a degree that a wheelchair user can get around.
Yeah, well, and that's operational, and that's something that, we can certainly take a look at from a policy perspective, because that is parks.
Okay.
But yeah, I appreciate those comments.
Sorry that they're out of context for the conversation this evening.
Yeah, that's right.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question about the dog park as well. So the main cost of that, like, I realized the fencing, and you said the installation of the water, and is there any one particular thing that makes it such a high amount? That's my first question. And then my next question would be the agreement or the arrangement that we have with New Minas to care for it. Is that like an agreement that's a written up agreement that clearly defines sort of responsibilities on their part for the maintenance of it?
So a big part of the cost beyond the groundwork is fencing. Fencing costs a truckload of money.
Okay.
To put it mildly.
Yes.
And then the water, I'm talking to Director Bell, we have some options there.
Okay.
So it's just finding space within that budget.
Okay.
The ongoing maintenance costs, we're in the middle of writing that up, but it will be to Kentville standards.
Okay.
I can reiterate that.
Okay, great.
Because we don't want to have those calls, and we want to make sure that it's up to the standard that we would expect on ourselves, but that is an agreement ongoing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. Yep, that's great, thanks.
Okay, the next section under recreation is recreation facilities for the swimming pool. We're looking at $25,000 ask this year. We're looking at the pool needing a new pump and lifeguard change rooms upgrades for $15,000. And the splash pad needs major repairs, $10,000. The funding for this particular program will come from the reserve funds for $25,000. The splash pad requires a major repair in order to have that pad operational at all this year. So we're looking at that $10,000 being money well spent. Keep that splash pad going. So basically, that's the program under pool. A new pump and lifeguard change rooms need to be upgraded for $15,000.
Counselor Maxwell.
Thank you. Rachel, is the splash pad, will it be open this summer? Or is this going to wait until 2023 to get open? Because I have a big concern about sending our public again to Numinus and Berwick for the little kids to use to get cooled off on those hot days. So will it be open this year?
That is certainly the intent. We hope to get it done. Again, it's about the work order. I believe that we can do some of it internally. Yeah, so we have the people. So I think the one red flag with the splash pad is right now, we believe that we know what we're talking about. That could all go out the window.
Was there any guarantee with the company who put in the splash pad? Because this isn't all that old. It's only about 6 years old.
3.
3 years old, there you go. It came up in my first term and it's only 3 years old.
Yeah, it is very frustrating. We have talked to them.
And they're just talking, they're not making commitments or anything. Okay, so this says 2023, nothing in 2022, but we're looking at getting something done.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
So just to let folks know, so we need to get under the cement that's been poured and the pipes essentially. Cut the concrete, not cement. See, I'm already there.
Okay,
And
sounds
then
doable.
the joints have popped off, so it's just a matter of putting those back together. Right?
Okay.
Is that oversimplifying it?
That's what I understand.
Yeah.
And the 23
Okay.
is this fiscal, 22, 23.
yeah, okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm good.
Counselor Zabian.
Thank you. Thanks, Director Bedingfield. So is this the same problem that, remember it was fixed last year for a day and then we had to shut it again? Is this the same issue or is this a new issue?
No, this is the same
This-
thing. It's just that we did an exploratory after the
Okay.
first one. We thought that we would figure it out, but it turns out it was a lot bigger
Okay.
than we thought.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And I completely agree. It's frustrating, and we've put up these really nice sage sails, and it's I know it's
Well, it's not your fault, but
like none of this is my fault. But I completely empathize that this is a really beloved facility, and it's very frustrating, and we will do everything we can to get it fixed this year, and as soon as possible, because
okay,
the minute it's above 10 degrees, people want to have their kids in the water. I get it.
absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, we're looking at the final segment for the Recreation Department is equipment. They're looking at an increase over last year of $13,000 to $100,000, and they're looking for 2 trucks this year, 2 pickup trucks for $100,000. Reserves will pay for $96,000, and hopefully they can sell some of the surplus trucks and achieve $4,000. That may be optimistic. Some of their trucks are 16 to 18 years old, so, and they're costing too much in repairs, and at least one truck, which is a 2004 F-150, is parked as it is not fit for the road and it's not worth repairing, so they're in desperate need of trying to get a vehicle, and of course, that's up to the supply chain, I guess. So anyway, we've built it in with optimism that we will get a truck or 2 trucks this year. So we're looking at the recreation summary, moving upwards $366,700 to $926,200. You can see the various projects that we're budgeting there at $926,200, and the funding will come from proceeds for $4,000, from the Town of Kentville Operating Fund for $5,300, from our own reserve funds $369,400, and from long-term borrowing $547,500. So that completes all of the departmental budgets, but we can look at the total capital program overall. We're looking at this year's program being a very robust program, costing $4,544,600. It's an increase over last year of $2,268,400. You can see the different programs that we're proposing to the right of the slide. And then the funding sources related to the program as well. It's a balanced budget, of course. We have to have a balanced budget. So we're looking at borrowing this year, moving from $1,064,100 up to $1,502,900. You'll also see the increases in the federal and provincial contributions. They've moved up because of the funding required from the Green Infrastructure Program and for the flooding program as well. So looking at the capital program in a pie chart, you'll see that the program is green infrastructure 28.2%, and the gas tax program's 21.9%. And the flood mapping program is about 4% of this whole capital program. So external grants are paying for or contributing 53% of this capital budget. The town of Kentville programs are 40%. The funding sources related to this are also in a pie chart. Our own reserves will pay for 38.1% of this budget. Gas tax reserve will pay for 21.5%, and our general capital reserve will pay 16.6% of this program. Last year, the reserve funds paid 46% of the capital budget. The operating fund will pay for a very tiny amount, 1.6% of the budget. The police vehicle for $66,000 and $5,300 for the Miners Landing Trail, which was money received from the developer. The federal government and the provincial government will pay for 24.6% of this budget, and last year they paid for 5% of our capital budget. Long-term borrowing will pay for 33.1% of this budget. Last year, debt funded 47% of our capital budget. So future years' capital, we're required to provide the next 4 years in order to keep our gas tax monies flowing. So you'll see the future years projects there. You can go through the detailed capital budgets that you received and see the projects that are budgeted. But in a nutshell, for gas tax, we're looking at years 2, 3, 4, and Southview and Lavinia renewal, top lift on McDonald subdivision, the top lift for Southview and Lavinia. For green infrastructure, we're looking at active transportation accessibility, multi-use gorge trails, bike routes, more signage and line painting. For transportation, we're looking at plow trucks, pickup trucks, work at the Public Works Depot, sidewalks for Prospect and Cornwallis, storm sewers south of Condon and Park Street, upgrades. For recreation, we're looking for green places on boat launch, Miners Marsh Trail expansion. The arena, it's looking for digital sign, floor replacement, accessibility upgrades. The parks, ball field, parking lot, and irrigation and ball field lighting is part of the program. Pocket parks and mill runs, skate park lights are some examples of things we're looking forward in the future. For development, we're looking at downtown betterments, more bike racks, more benches, lighting, public art. And for protection services, we're looking at new vehicles. So those are sort of the overall plans in the future for the next 4 years for the programs. Future years funding, we're looking at operations paying for the Kentville Police vehicles each year. The gas tax will pay for 16 to 21% of future capital infrastructure renewals. Upper levels of government will provide between 20 and 50% funding for future capital acquisitions. And reserve will pay for 10 to 14% of the funding needed in the next 4 years. Borrowing will range from a high of 38% to a low of 14% over the next 4 years. So the future years project are just graphed here for you. You can see the most of the future acquisition is found in gas tax program and the green infrastructure program, years 2 and 3, and it's declining. That program declines in years 4 and 5. Transportation is a robust program, as well as recreation. Other departments such as police and administration and planning and development remain pretty consistent from year to year. Future years funding, you can see, remains fairly stable over the life of the program for operations and gas tax and proceeds from our own operating fund, as well as reserves. The federal and provincial government provide funding for the green infrastructure program. and hopefully will contribute to funding in year 5 to extend the Miners Marsh Trail located in the recreation budget in year 5. That's why you see that big one dip here at the very end. That's what that is we're hoping for. Borrowing in year 2 remains within our rule of thumb and declines to approximately $800,000 in future years. So looking at future outstanding debt, long-term debt outstanding at March 31st, 2022 for the town only is $4,981,500. Temporary borrowings outstanding at March 31st, 2022, which will be termed into long-term debt in a few weeks, we're looking at $728,000. So when the budget last year for the 21-22 year outstanding principal debt was originally projected to be $6,045,460. So the actual outstanding at March 31st is $5,709,500, and it's a difference of $336,000. So that's where you'll see the green is a lot lower than what we had projected last year. I don't think my mouse is showing up there. I'm showing it here, but it's not showing up there. I'm circling stuff, and you guys aren't seeing what I'm circling. But anyway, hopefully you can follow what I'm trying to say. But for some reason, it's a white mouse on a white background, and I guess it must just disappear. Anyway, moving on. This is an aggressive capital program, and debt service levels will rise as the borrowing is higher than customary in the 22-23 year at $1.5 million. However, bear in mind that we have not borrowed to our limit or our rule of thumb limit over the last 3 years. So we certainly can fit this into our financial background. The future year's debt remains, it declines over the remaining 4 years of the capital budget. So you can see where we have our debt servicing starting to rise, and it starts to decline over the life of this program. You can see the debt servicing from the operating fund is fairly consistent to last year. The red line is what we project this year needs to come from the operating fund over the 5 years of this capital program. It's fairly consistent, especially in the first 3 years. We're basically on target, just slightly higher in year 4 and year 5. And it is basically due to not only building in the higher debt servicing that we have in the years 1 and 2 of this program, but also building in an increase in interest rates for long-term debt. We've built in an estimate of 3% in the first year, moving up 25 basis points each year to a high of 4.0% over the life of this program. So that is why you see, one of the reasons why you see the red line moving above the blue line, but certainly it's a robust program this year, there's no doubt about it. The reserve funds, this is a quick look at our funds held in reserve. This is from 2019 to projected to March 31st, 2023. At the end of March 2022, the town had $3.3 million, almost $3.4 million held in reserve. The operating reserve holdings around $982,000. The town equipment reserve, $32,680. The gas tax capital reserve, $596,896. And the town capital reserve, $1,744,289. Projected using whatever funding we have in this program for use, plus our transfers from operating into our capital reserves. We're looking at the balance at March 31st, 2023, equating to around $2.5 million. And you can see where there's increases and decreases in some of these. The gas tax reserves monies, a lot of it will be spent this year because we're doing a complete overhaul of the McDonald's Avenue subdivision. Town capital reserve will still have a healthy balance at the end of March 2023 of $1.5 million, give or take. So we're looking at projected balance overall of our reserve funds, about $2.5 million. And this is a graph of the reserve funds. You can look at that. You can see where it goes up and down, and that's because money comes in and money goes out. And so we're using our reserve funds appropriately to buy or save up for whatever projects we hope to do. If money is given to us for a specific project, once it's billed, the money is spent, that kind of thing. So you'll see gas taxes up and down. It's one of the most up and down reserve funds that we have. So looking at the debt service ratio and the per capita debt compared to last year the debt service ratio in the capital plan ranged from 8.3% to 9%. This year, the debt service ratio is decreased to 7.7% to a high of 8.9% in this capital program. The per capita debt is also shown with our new population cited by StatsCan 2021. Population has increased in Kentville by 359 or 5.7% to 6,630 residents. So using that figure to compare, I've recalculated last year's per capita debt in comparison to this year's per capita debt. This year, we're looking at per capita debt ranging from a low of $852 to a high of $985. And you can see with this slide, the per capita debt, or the debt service ratio is much lower than it was projected last year. So the debt affordability, we've always looked at debt affordability at 11% of own source revenue. This is what this particular slide is demonstrating. It's looking at our rule of thumb, like I said, is to keep our debt affordability below 11% of our own source revenue. The town will have capacity for new debt servicing if it needed to in this program. It starts in year one with a capacity of $411,000, and it moves down slightly to somewhere around $300,000 over the life of this program. Our outstanding debt will range from 6.4% in year one, and it will move downwards to about 5.6 million. Pardon me, did I say percent? Yes. I know I said percent. It would move from 6.4 million down to 5.6 million over the life of this program. And as our debt service ratio is very low in comparison to other years that we've looked at the capital program, 7.7% to 8.7% in the last year of this particular program. So our debt affordability graph, you can see that we're looking at our own source revenue moving upwards. It increases each year, and in this particular application, I budget this very cautiously, very conservatively, so I move our own source revenue up only about 1.5% growth each year, and I expect this is going to be on the very low side, knowing that more residential assessments will come on stream on the 2023 roll. But erring on the side of caution, I would suggest that this is the worst case scenario that you would see for increased own source revenue. We're looking at the debt servicing moving upwards from below $1 million to slightly under $1.2 million over the life of this program. And also the capacity for borrowing is around $400,000, moving down to just around $300,000 in the fifth year of this program. But looking at the comparison from last year, the capacity at 11% for 2022 and the capacity at 2023, where you see the little arrow, is where I want you to look on the left-hand side. So basically, we're looking at a much better picture in 2023 as far as the capacity to borrow if need be, and certainly the line for our own source revenue has really gone basically through the roof because of the wonderful assessment base we received this year, as well as the lift in the cap. So debt servicing remains consistent with the first years of this program, but increases as expected due to the early years borrowing coupled with built-in estimations of interest rate increases. And as I said before, this capital program is aggressive. It's the most aggressive plan that we've put forth to council in my tenure here. We've been fortunate to have been awarded federal and provincial funding and several grants which have pushed plans such as active transportation and floodline mapping and subdivision renewals to the forefront. The growth in assessment in this fiscal is the highest growth that I've ever seen. And it's because of this growth that we are able to put this plan before you and keep our debt service ratio below 10% and our per capita debt below $1,000. So that is our presentation to you, Council, and we're looking for directions, discussion, what your feedback on anything you saw tonight.
So before we move on to that, Director, we do have one question from the last part of this presentation. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Director Cole, you said that the gas tax is indexed on a per annum basis. What percentage?
I haven't seen that written on anywhere what it is.
Okay.
Actually, some years we've gotten less in
That's what I
gas
thought.
tax.
Okay.
While I found the formula, and the formula's, whatever, but they just say it's indexed.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you.
It's magic. All right, Director, staff, on behalf of council, I want to thank you very much for the level of effort that has gone into what seems like a very thin document, but it is just full of good news. So council, when we think about our debt affordability at less than 8%, the fact that we are funding this with 53% from external grants speaks to the amount of work that our staff has done to garner these grants for us. And it also means that we are starting with 47-cent dollars for all of our capital that we're doing. So this is absolutely amazing. And you know, we are truly going for the gusto. As Director Kroll has said to you, this is the biggest budget capital investment plan, and that's what we should really term it, is truly an investment plan of $4.5 million for our town. And when you think of all the things that we're doing and the fact that these are 47-cent dollars, we should be celebrating. So I really would like a round of applause for our staff. So thank you very much for this work. So we do have a recommendation from staff. And we have sent around 2 doodle polls, and we have been unable to come to a consensus for another meeting. So without rushing you, I don't want you to feel like you're being rushed, council. However, staff has put their nose to the grindstone, so perhaps it's time for us. So we have 2 choices here. We can take this budget that you've just seen, if you're happy with it, and approve it this evening at our council meeting, or we can mull it over in our heads and try and come up with a meeting. Now, the problem with that is that none of the RFP work goes out until this budget is approved. So we are holding up our own work. So if I can mention it to you again, 53% of our funding is coming from external grants. Our debt affordability is less than 8%. I would really like to take their recommendation and put this budget on the floor. And if you have any concerns, please speak to them now. If you have a concern that you really and truly need more time, then we'll consider that as well. But if we have to point and laugh, then that may happen as well. So if I could take the recommendation and say that council approve the 2022-2023 Town of Kentville capital budget in the amount of $4,544,600, including the funding sources. And further, that council approves the future years 2023-24 to 2026-27 in principle, including the funding sources. 2023-24 is $2,756,300. 24-25 is $2,396,700. 25-26 is $2,058,300. 26-27 is $2,530,000. If someone could move that, please. Councillor Maxwell, thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Huntley, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the 2022-23 Town of Kentville capital budget in the amount of $4,544,600, including the funding sources. And further, that council approves the future years 2023-24 to 2026-27 in principle, including the funding sources. 2023-24 at $2,756,300. 24-25 at $2,396,700. 25-26 at $2,058,300. 26-27 at $2,530,000. And for discussion, please. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. I'll probably echo a couple of things that you said, but I just want to say thank you to Director Kroll and the rest of the directors. It is robust, it is aggressive, it's all encompassing, and, you know, clearly you've been listening to, you know, the citizens of Kentville and to all of the things that we've talked about over the last couple of years at council. I love the debt affordability piece, being well below the 11%. It's a phenomenal capital budget, and it was certainly well worth the wait, so thank you very much. I'm really, really impressed. I love that the director is wearing pearls on capital budget day. Well done.
They're not real.
Oh, no, well, I don't judge. So just thank you very much. It's just a really awesome budget, and a lot of hard work went into it, and so thank you. Thank you very, very much. Thanks.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you very much. I again want to thank everyone for all their work. When I close my eyes and I think about all the things that are in this budget, the vision for Kentville is fantastic in this upcoming year, below ground and above ground. And it's nice to see our older areas, McDonald finally getting their upgrade. Last year it was Burke. You know, we need to keep looking at those older sections of town and bringing them up to scratch. But fantastic, and I'm feeling really good about the way that Kentville's going to look and the direction we're taking. So thank you very much.
Is there any further discussion? Are you ready for the question? The question is to recommend approval of the 2022-2023 Town of Kentville capital budget in the amount of $4,544,600, including the funding sources, and further that council approve the future years 2023-24 to 2026-27 in principle, including the funding sources. 23-24 at $2,756,300. 24-25 at $2,396,700, 25-26 at $2,058,300, 26-27 at $2,530,000. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you so very much, staff. And thank you for your time this evening. And, one more thing of business. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. And the time is 6:23.